The Pretty in Pink. One bright afternoon in the orchardkin garden, something very exciting was happening. Inside the little house, beyond the orchard and just past the old apple tree, was a window that the orchardkin knew very well. It belonged to the lady's sewing room. And for the past few days, the window had been glowing late into the afternoon. "She's making something," whispered Cherry, pressing close to the flower pot beneath the window. "She is definitely making something," said Poppy, who had been watching through the leaves. Little Beth stood on tiptoe. "Do you think it will be another one of us?" "Oh, I hope so," cried Pudding Pop. Soon everyone had gathered. There was Anna, Little Dumpling, Pansy, Bluebell, Magnolia, and Kevin, all peeking and wondering. And every day, the lady gave them another little hint. The first hint came when she walked outside carrying a basket. "Oh dear," they heard her say. "Look at all this stuff lying around the yard." The orchardkin all looked at one another, for scattered among the grass were little bits and pieces they recognized. A ribbon that had once been tied around one of Poppy's things, some bright pink yarn that had been left behind after a windy afternoon, a few scraps and treasures from old orchardkin adventures, and there, folded in a corner, was a pink picnic blanket. "That's ours!" gasped Little Dumpling. "Well," said Kevin, scratching his head, "technically, we did leave it there." The lady gathered everything into her basket, believing she was simply cleaning up the yard, but the orchardkin followed her right back to the sewing room window. And then they saw the most wonderful thing. The lady placed the pink picnic blanket upon her table. She measured, she cut, she stitched. The little pieces of yarn and ribbons were gathered nearby. "Oh!" whispered Magnolia. "She's making a dress," said Bluebell. A dress? For whom? The orchardkin could hardly sleep that night. The next morning they rushed back to the window. There was the lady again. This time she was making something else. Two little legs, then two arms, then a round, gentle face. Each day the mysterious new creation grew. The orchardkin saw bright pink hair appear. They saw lovely brown eyes. They watched as the lady carefully painted a sweet little smile. And then one afternoon, she placed the beautiful pink dress upon the new doll. The orchardkin stared in amazement. She was beautiful. "She needs a name," whispered Beth. "She looks like a sunset made out of strawberries," said Pudding Pop. "She looks like pink lemonade," said Anna. "She looks like the prettiest thing I have ever seen," cried Little Dumpling. And from that day on, before they even knew if the new doll would ever speak or walk or join their adventures, the orchardkin secretly called her the Pretty in Pink. But something very special was hidden inside the Pretty in Pink. She had been made from things that belonged to the orchardkin's own little world. The ribbon, the yarn, the picnic blanket, treasures the lady had found lying around and thought she was cleaning away. Without even realizing it, the orchardkin had helped bring their newest friend into being. And that made everyone wonder. Perhaps that was why the Pretty in Pink seemed to belong to the orchard already. At last, one beautiful morning, the lady carried the new doll outside. The orchardkin quickly hid behind flowers and trees to watch. The lady walked beneath the branches of the old apple tree. Then she gently placed the Pretty in Pink against the trunk. She arranged her dress, straightened her long pink hair, placed a lovely little hat upon her head, and then the lady went back inside. For a moment, nobody moved. The Pretty in Pink simply sat beneath the tree. Still, quiet, silent. Cherry stepped forward. "Should we say hello?" "I don't think she can hear us," whispered Pansy. Kevin slowly approached. "Maybe we should gather around her." And so they did. Beth came first, then Anna and Little Dumpling. Cherry and Poppy hurried over. Pudding Pop squeezed in beside Bluebell. Magnolia and Pansy stood together, and Kevin took his place near the back. Soon, every orchardkin was gathered beneath the apple tree, surrounding the beautiful doll in her pink dress. They waited. Nothing happened. The leaves rustled. A little breeze lifted one long strand of her pink yarn hair. Still nothing. Little Dumpling leaned closer. "Hello," she whispered. Nothing. Then Pudding Pop giggled nervously. "What if we all say something at the same time?" "That sounds like a terrible idea," said Kevin. But before anyone could stop them, every orchardkin leaned forward. "Hello," and suddenly, pop! A little pink ribbon fluttered. The Pretty in Pink's head slowly lifted. Her brown eyes blinked. Once, twice. Her hands moved. The orchardkin gasped and stumbled backward. Then the Pretty in Pink looked all around at the circle of astonished faces. A great big smile spread across her face, and in the happiest voice anyone in the orchard had ever heard, she cried, "Happy birthday!" For one moment, nobody said anything. Then everyone began shouting at once. "She talked! She moved! She came alive! Happy birthday!" cried Poppy. "Whose birthday is it?" The Pretty in Pink looked around again and smiled. "I don't know," she said cheerfully, "but it felt like something wonderful to say." And then Pudding Pop began to laugh, and Bluebell laughed, and Kevin laughed so hard that everyone laughed at him. Soon the entire orchard was filled with laughter. The Pretty in Pink stood up beneath the old apple tree. She looked down at her dress. Then she touched one of the little ribbons. "This came from here," she said. The orchardkin nodded. She touched a strand of yarn, and this came from here too. They nodded again. Then she looked at the grass, the flowers, the apple tree, and all of her new friends. "So," she said softly, "a little bit of all of you helped make me." The orchardkin became very quiet. Little Beth stepped forward and took her hand. "Then you belong here," she said. The Pretty in Pink smiled. And that was the day the orchardkin welcomed their newest friend. Not simply because she had magically come alive beneath the apple tree. Not simply because the lady had made her with loving hands, but because her dress, her ribbons, her yarn, and even a piece of her story had begun right there among them. She had come from their orchard, from their adventures, from the little things they had left behind, and from that day forward, whenever the orchardkin saw something lying in the yard, they were much more careful. Because, as Pudding Pop always said, "Don't throw that away. The lady might be making another one of us." And beneath the old apple tree, the Pretty in Pink would smile and shout, "Happy birthday!" even when it wasn't anybody's birthday at all.